people start to continue to trickle in. So first off, thank you everyone for taking the time once again. If this is your first session of the Leadership Summit, thank you for joining us. Better late than never. We have a great session on deck for you guys tonight. If you're back again, thank you for joining us once again. This is our last official session of the Leadership Summit. If you were, I'll talk a little bit at the end actually about maybe one or two things that we're going to have upcoming later in June. But for the purpose of tonight, leading a ripple effect within your team. If you were on our sessions last Saturday, you'd remember Clément and Mazdak, our wonderful facilitators. They will be managing the majority of the content tonight, and they have a lot of great interactive sessions planned. Before we get into that, though, we have a special treat for you guys tonight. So before I hand things over to Clément and Mazdak, I first want to pass things off to our president at Enactus Canada, Nicole Almond, to speak to you all here this evening. Nicole?
There we go. Hi, guys. I don't know, treat, but I'm excited to be part of it. And apologies if you hear screaming. It's dinner time, which is when the children get terrible. First of all, wanted to say congratulations and good work on taking on a leadership role within your Enactus team. And thanks for leaning in and being part of these leadership summit sessions that we've had over the last couple of weeks. It's because of you that we're able to have the impact that we have across the country. And it's because of the leadership on teams across the country that Enactus has the impact that it does. So congratulations and a huge good luck to you guys over the next year. I still remember my time leading my team. I won't tell you how many years ago, a lot of years ago. And it was one of the most fun and challenging years that I've had. And the things that I learned in the year that I was running my team are things that I still keep with me today. And one of the things as you guys are talking about your role and, all of the different skills that you're learning over the next few weeks, and I know some of these great sessions, I wanted to put it a little bit into an Enactus context. And what is your role as an Enactus team president or team leadership? Because I know some of you are kind of co and whatever the structure on your team happens to be. Because your job is kind of threefold. Your job is to help set the direction and goals of the team, support the students on your team, and set your team up for future success. And a little secret I want to let you in on that a lot of students don't necessarily realize, sometimes even until they start working for us at the national office with some of our program managers. Although a lot of you talk about Enactus being an organization that's about running community projects, that's actually not what we're about. We're an organization that's about building the leaders of tomorrow, the leaders who have built the skills, the talent, and the perspective that's going to be necessary to take on the challenges that Canada and the world is facing as we move forward. That's why 15 years later, I am still part of this organization and still get so excited by each and every one of you. It's not your projects, it's you. And it's the students on your team, and it's the experiences that you have on your team, and the experiences that the students on your team have that mean that 5, 10, 15 years from now, you are the people that are going to change the world. And you are the people that are going to make this country and the world a better place. And your job as a leader of a team, therefore, is not just to make sure your team runs projects, but it's to make sure that the students on your team have an exceptional learning experience as they do it. I care way more that a team has a bunch of students who leave at the end of the year and say, wow, that was amazing, but every project we tried failed, but I learned about 100 things doing it, than a team that, trucks along and does the same thing they did and the students don't learn anything. Because this is a learning organization. It's an entrepreneurial organization that's about trying things, learning how to fail, learning how to pivot, learning how to manage things. And that's a hard thing to do. And that's a hard thing to ask you to do, to manage a team of a bunch of students that are trying to learn those things. So it's a big job you've taken on. And that job, just keep in mind, isn't just about the projects. It's also about the other students on the team. So I just kind of always like to put that in perspective with new team leadership, because I think it's something that often gets missed when you're looking at the projects and the competition. But all of those to us are tools that we use to give experiential learning opportunities to students. So when you're looking at your year, look at the direction and the goals that you're setting for your team, and look at them in the context of the experience of the students on your team. Because your job is to make sure that every single student on your team and you leave next year knowing that you're changed and that you're a different leader than you started this year as. And I think that, you know, that leads really well into the topic of today's session, and coaching, and how do you coach and manage the rest of the students on your team. So that's just kind of my 2 cents, and also just want to say a huge thank you to each and every one of you for being, for taking on this challenge and taking on this role. We are so excited for the next year. We know it's going to pose some very interesting challenges, and we're excited to work with you guys through that as we see what the fall looks like, what the winter looks like, what events may or may not look like in the next 12 months. And know that our team here at the National Office, be it your program manager or Jen or myself, we are here to help support and do whatever we can to ensure that you and your team have the most successful year possible. So thank you so much. I don't want to take up any more of the time that is allocated to this session, but if you have any questions, or if you ever wanted to reach out, any of your program managers know where to find me, or my contact information is available on the website if you wanted to reach out directly. So thank you, have fun, and I'm really excited for all of you, because my year leading a team was one of my favorite years ever. So good luck. Wow. And I'll hand it over to Clément.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Nicole. So much passion, so much dedication. And I think you couldn't have set the table better for tonight's session. That's all about how can you, as Enactus leaders, lead a ripple effect within your team. And the whole design was around what can we empower you with that will help you empower your teammates and your peers. And we're really lucky with us tonight. I've invited on board Mazdak, who is one of those incredible coaches. Mazdak, how could I describe him? Every time he starts a coaching session, he'll get people up and moving and whatsoever, that you're always wondering, what is he up to with that? But every single time I had someone leave a coaching session with Mazdak, and I asked them, so how was it? They always had huge eyes and said, wow, so transformative. I've learned so much about myself. So hoping that tonight in this setting with 50 people, we can have some of you also leave with some things you'll be able to concretely take home to your team. So Mazdak, to you.
Thank you so much, Clément, for that warm welcome. Thank you so much, Nicole, for that inspiring words that you said and set us up really well. Thank you to Aaron, Catherine, and all of the Enactus team also for setting up the session here. Yeah, coaching is something, it's both your job, but also it's your role. You know, you cannot take the coach out of the coach once you actually taste it and once actually you do it. It's about really empowering your team and evoking transformation in your team. The thing with coaching is it really changes your conversations. It changes the quality of your listening. You listen really actively and with empathy. It changes the way you ask questions. Your questions changes from superficiality to really insightful and powerful questions. And when I look at Clément, he does so many different things. He's a lecturer, he's a teacher, he's a change maker, he's a leader. But at the end of the day, he's a coach. And if you always, when you talk to him, he always asks you very insightful and powerful questions. He's always listening very deeply and empathetically to you. So thank you so much, Clément, for inviting me here. So coaching, as we mentioned, by changing the type of questions that you ask, by the quality of your listening, you will allow your people to navigate the difficult times, navigate the change themselves, and be able to tap into their resiliency. So you become their champion. You're actually an accompanying. You're not trying to fix them. You're not trying to fix the situation. You're just a cheerleader for them. And that is very, very important. Question is asked, so what is the difference between coaching and therapy and mentoring and consulting? Let me use a metaphor with you guys. So imagine the idea is to ride a bike. And I'm just using a little bit of humor here, so no offense to any therapist or any consultants out there. So the approach of a therapist is like, oh, you want to ride a bike? Go beside the bike and tell me what you feel about riding a bike. Tell me about your emotions. The approach of a consultant will be, okay, let me write down the steps. So step number 1, you put your right leg on the pedal. Step number 2, you put your left leg on the pedal. Then you did it. And here you are. This is your document. Take the document and ride the bike. The approach of a coach is, let me stand beside you. Get on the bike. Let's start together. I will be walking beside you, holding your hand until the moment you're able to ride on your own. And when you're able to ride your own, I'm gonna fade away, and there you go. So that's the coach's approach. Also, there are some questions. Oh, what is the difference between coaching and mentoring? It's very similar, actually. The difference is usually in a mentor, it's a longer term commitment and engagement. And usually your mentor is someone that is your role model and is actually has done what you're trying to achieve and do. And what the mentor does, it will open up opportunities for you. The mentor also hooks you up with the right type of people, and also answers certain questions, and it's a longer. Coach is mainly for a shorter period of time on a specific topic. It doesn't try to fix this situation, only asks you the right questions. So let me share my screen with you. And Clément, if you want to add anything, if not, we can actually start the exercise.
And I'll just make it a little more explicit if you haven't connected the dots yet. Tonight, we're going to be talking about coaching and how can you develop your coaching skills in order to bring it back and coach all of your peers in your Enactus team. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about how do you give and receive constructive feedback, which is something super, super important for you to create a culture of open feedback with your team. And the reason, if I go back to my reason why we chose to cover these topics, is I've always said that more than anything I can do myself, if I could empower 10, 50, 100 other people to create the change they want to see in the world, it would have a much bigger impact. And you as leaders of your team, you have that power, you have that opportunity to accompany others in their growth. And that's why we decided that we'll be tackling coaching. Throughout this session, we're going to split you in different groups where sometimes you'll be given activities, you'll be given a chance to try. Most of you were there Saturday. I think you know the ground rules, you know the game, you know that it's a safe space. What's being said tonight is going to be kept between us, so confidentiality. But also when we're in the big group, we're going to ask some questions. We are hoping for everyone to chip in. So I know those on Saturday are used to that culture, but those who are new today, please, 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 feel free to unmute your mic and to join into the conversation. And so to launch you on a first little conversation, also so you get the chance to meet some of your peers from other Enactus clubs, we're going to send you out in breakout rooms, and you'll have 5 minutes during which we invite you to introduce yourself and to talk about if you were to seek a coach, what would you look for in that person? What would you look for in a coach? So unless there's any question, I'm going to be sending you out in the respective breakout rooms. And I'm including all of the Enactus program managers in the breakout room, so you can join right in and play coach with all of the students. Any questions before we break out? we shall go. Welcome back to the main room. We'll just wait a minute more for everyone to trickle in. All right, so for those who were at Saturday's session, this is going to be familiar. For those who are new to it, we'll make you meet this beautiful app called Mural that allows you to do online collaborative whiteboards. What we're going to do next to help you drop your thoughts. Oops, I'm just going to do Mazda. Do you mind taking off the share screen so I can share my screen, please? So what we're going to do next is basically we're going to send you a link so you can all hop on to this wonderful whiteboard. It's going to be very simple. On this whiteboard, there's features here that allow you to zoom in or zoom out. You can move around the board. And here on the left, you'll find an option that says text, where you can all have fun adding as many colorful post-its in wonderful forms and colors to the whiteboard. And basically what we're going to invite you to do, for those who haven't used the app on Saturday, just be wary that if you click back to dashboard that's at the very top, you're going to be moved out of the mural and you'll wonder why. But for those who, if you have any questions, feel free to voice them up as soon as we get going. But the concept is very simple. You're going to get 7 minutes, to all of you, to add as many post-its as you want around these 3 questions. Question 1 being, what makes great coaching? Question 2 being, what are the attributes of a good coach? And question 3, what shouldn't a coach do? And so if I do an example, what are the attributes of a good coach? I could write here that they must be open-minded. And so you'll all get a chance to dump as many post-its as you want on those 3 questions. And then we'll have a discussion and get into some practice too around coaching. Any questions while I share the link in the chat? So here's your Mural link. I've just sent it in the chat. You should all be joining in the Mural, and please, please, please feel free. You've got 7 minutes to add as many post-its as you want to answer those 3 questions. What makes a great coaching? What are the attributes of a good coach? And what shouldn't a coach do? If you're having any struggle with Mural, for those who weren't there on Saturday in particular, please, please, please feel free to voice it out. There's really no shame to it. And for those who don't like chaotic murals, don't worry, there'll be time where we can sort through the mural, but this creative chaos just means that there's a lot of good ideas being added. I know there's a lot of stuff already, but we'll give it a couple more minutes. And feel free really to wonder and try to answer to your best, at least a few posted in each of the categories. And if you need to add some post-its that are on the side of the mural, feel free to. We want to get as many ideas out there.
Oh wow, wow, what a rich board. I am amazed. I am in awe, really. So just pick like last 10 seconds, put your last sticky there, and we're gonna open up the conversation to the big group and hear from a few of you. Wow, wow, wonderful. This is so let's hear from a few of you. Let's start with what makes a great coaching, and feel free to unmute yourself and share.
I think one of the main things that makes great coaching is being able to establish a good relationship with the person you're working with, establishing a mutual trust for both ways, a two-way relationship. So you both learn from each other, you both go through the process together, and someone who's willing to work with the person they're working with rather than just telling them what to do, going through every step of the way along with them, as you said, Mazdak, with the bike example.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. So coaching is a relationship. It's very important, and it's based on trust, and it's 100% shoulder to shoulder. It's as much as the coach puts in, the coachee puts in together. It's not just a professional, like an accountant-accountee type of relationship. It's really equal. Let's hear from another one.
I can go, I guess. Yeah, I think the biggest difference, like what makes a good coach is knowing when to push and when to support, and kind of sometimes knowing when to do both. Because sometimes you just need a sounding board to bounce ideas off of. And sometimes you also need someone to push and be like, I know you can make this idea further. And sometimes it looks more tough love sometimes too, which might be irritating, but I think that sometimes is the best thing to get out of a coach.
Ah, beautiful. Sometimes we need the kick in the butt. Awesome. Let's hear from another one.
Yeah, for me, it's important that to have some fun and that there be some humor in the situation.
Yeah.
Man, you'd love having a coaching session with Mazdak.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you very much. You are very right, Brian. Lightheartedness, bringing that lightness and that sense of humor is very, very important, and it's very helpful in the coaching relationship. Thank you for bringing it. One last person. Also, if you'd like to chat, if you wanted to write in the chat, you can write in the chat as well.
I was just going to say that it's really important to be self-aware, to know your type of coaching style and perhaps things you can work on or how you can better become a coach, just because on a team you have so many different types of personalities and, you know, introverts, extroverts, or people that will work in different ways. So I think it's important to be able to be self-aware and then be able to support others.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The coach, the awareness the coach has on himself and the self-management that the coach has is very, very important. Moving on to the second question. So what are the attributes of a good coach? You can chat or unmute yourself.
I can go.
Yeah.
So I think that having a positive attitude is a good attribute to have as a coach, because being positive is really encouraging for the team, and it kind of builds the gaps that we have in a team.
Also, when you were talking about the positive attitude, what brought to me is like the coach needs to believe in you.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen so often that your team members don't believe in themselves. And all you need to do is believe in them more than they believe in themselves for them to overcome their challenges.
Yeah. So we are having goal-oriented, passionate and caring, inspiring. Someone inspires and believe in you. Bring perspective. Yeah. So let's have one more voice and we move on to another question.
I think like knowing when to stop is really important. I think providing someone advice and giving them guidance, at some point you have to kind of just stay off their back and allow them to take what they need and allow them to execute it themselves instead of just constantly like bothering them about it.
Beautiful, Rita, beautiful. Yeah, so that fading away, knowing when you need to fade away and let people go. And also what you mentioned brought me respecting silence. Sometimes you ask the question and there is a silence, and it's perfectly okay. And let's be with that silence as well. Wow, this is rich. Thank you. So what shouldn't the coach do?
Is okay if I go?
Yeah.
I think a coach shouldn't be frustrated or mad or criticize a coachee if they tell them something and that ends up not working out. I think a coach has to know that everyone works differently, and that just because something worked for them doesn't mean that it will work for someone else, and they should be okay with that. So not being frustrated and mad about things not working out.
Great point.
Yeah.
I think it's also important for a coach to kind of realize that like the role is to help, and that this is like the coachee's goal, or that they're working towards the other person's goal, not their own, and not to get like attached to what they believe, and rather think of what the other person would want, or what they want. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's always the coach's agenda. It's not the coach's agenda. So if as a coach, you have to leave your agenda behind, whatever in the background, and you have to be fully in the agenda of the coachee. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's have one more.
I can go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a coach should definitely not think that the most important thing as a part of a team is not to win only. I think your mission should be to teach people and help them grow as individuals so that they can become better people, like both on and off, just some valuable life lessons. So it shouldn't just be focused on winning. It should be focused on how others feel and being empathetic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Empathy. Very, very.
Yeah.
And we have coach shouldn't be arrogant. Yes, agree. And the coach shouldn't feel that he knows it all, because he doesn't. He or she doesn't know it at all. Actually, the person that is close to that topic, to that, knows much more than the coach. Coach has been there for like half an hour. That person lived with that issue for their life. Yeah.
I think our whole group, with everything that was generated on the Merle, I have faith that everyone here have already done informal coaching. So Mazdak, how about we let them practice?
Yes, let's do some fun practice here. So we're gonna have a peer coaching, but so we're gonna be 2 by 2. So I'm gonna give you some instructions first. So please listen carefully and ask questions if you have. So you're gonna end up with 2 people. One person chooses to be the coach, and the other person will become a coachee. If there is a disagreement who does what, the person closest to the city of Montreal will be the coach. Otherwise, you can pick it between yourselves. At the beginning, the coach just designs that alliance, that safe space. So asks from the coachee whether there's anything the coachee needs from him. So it creates that environment, that safe space of trust. Also mention that anything that is discussed will remain confidential. Okay. Then the coachee comes with a topic for the coach. And since we are in this e-summit of Enactus, it could be wonderful if you could come with a topic related to one of your current projects or current struggles with your Enactus projects. Then for 8 minutes, the coach will coach the coachee, and then we come back to the big circle and we will have a debrief. Any questions? So pick one as a coach, as coachee. If you have arguments, the person closest to Montreal is a coach. Number 2, coach, design alliance, safe space, confidentiality. Coachee, bring your topic and then have fun with it.
And you'll be given about 10 minutes, so it will be short, but you'll get a feel of how it is, and we'll have a chance to debrief, and you'll get some other chances to practice afterwards. So unless there's any questions, I'm sending you out into your respective breakout rooms. Oh, so I do believe we have everyone.
Yeah,
First of all, I want to say I am sorry, Sydney. I believe you were in a room alone for about half the time. If ever that happens to someone else, feel free to nudge me or come back in the main room and we'll redirect you. So sorry about that. And if not, I'd be curious. I saw a lot of smiles on people's face coming back, but I'm sure it was also a challenge for some. So I'd be curious just to hear from people in the group what went well and what was challenging. And how about we start hearing from those who were actually in the coaching position? What went well, what was challenging?
I'm gonna jump right in here because I learned a lot in my breakout room. And because I'm a peer mentor, I found that I was trying to offer solutions all the time and not listening and not asking those questions to help them develop in their own mind their own solutions and to figure it out for themselves. So I mean, I had Mazdak in my room and he was amazing at helping me to do the coaching. So I really learned that you can get to that end without offering them that solution by just asking questions. And that was super enlightening.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing, Sarah.
Hello.
Yes, Jaden.
Hi. So we actually had a really good conversation, and I was lucky enough to have been with somebody who did one of the same projects as me, kind of like on the same scale. And I think one thing that was really cool about our conversation is that even though she was the coachee, she was able to give me ideas too. So I think it was really cool that, kind of like the coachee became the coach in that moment. Because I found myself several times going, oh, that's really cool, or yeah, I like that point. So I think it's really, really awesome too to let the coachee become the coach sometimes, because you might end up, being able to share ideas and get really ideas off of each other. So always just be bouncing off each other, because I think that's the best way that not only you can find a solution, but they can find one as well.
Thank you, Jaden.
Yeah, for sure. And building off that, what Jaden was saying, I was also the coach in my room. But sometimes I'm assuming a bunch of us going into leadership positions in Enactus for the next year, leaders don't always have all the answers in their heads. So even in my room, when I was the coach, my partner and I, we had some great discussions, both providing our own insights, and talking about that same thing. Sometimes leaders don't know everything and have to learn along the way. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to people for support, because that's what will better you even further for success. And I find that's something a lot of people are afraid to do because they see themselves in a senior position. I can't ask for questions. I should know everything. So I'm going to BS my way through this. But it's best to actually ask and figure it out for real.
Wow. Xander, a metaphor I love using on that note is to say that when you're working on projects, often you're paving the road in front of you. And when you help people realize that, they realize, oh, I don't need to have all the answers because I'll need to ask the right question and find the right brick every time.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Others? Other coach, what went well? What was challenging?
Yeah, I can go for myself. So I find while I was coaching, for me, it's like I come with my background, I try to use a lot of empathy and kind of relate to my coachee, because I think speaking from I think for some of us, we did start at the bottom. We did work our way from project lead to like executive members to like presidents or like whatever our role is now. And I think to kind of connect with your coachee and say, yeah, I was there, like we were I had the exact same problem as you, and this is what I done. Like whether it will work for you or not, don't know, but that this is what I did and from experience.
Thank you, Vanessa.
I was a coach, and I found that I didn't really think of coaching and like the coachee as like very much so a symbiotic relationship. So there's like a balance between talking and listening. And I found that the person I was coaching, the only way that we were able to come up with solutions or work on kind of moving and progressing in the project he was talking about was really listening. So I had to really listen, understand what he was talking about, and clarify also, just if I wasn't quite understanding, not just like being quick to answering. I think sometimes we listen to answer, and it was really nice to actually be able to kind of sit with what the issues were and then kind of moving forward, and even the positive things. I think it's always good to be a coach that also celebrates what's good while moving forward. So yeah.
That's a great point, Sinthu. And a clarifying question are great tools for coach, because the worst thing to do is to start trying to go towards answers when you don't even understand the problem, because they'll know the problem so much better than you. And often just by asking those clarification questions, you'll help them come up with the right solution. So that's a great point. Last comment from a coach.
Yeah, I think in our session, like it was really great that the problem that came up was something that I'm struggling with too right now. So it became a bit more of a back and forth, but I know within my own coaching style, I'm trying to figure out the balance between offering my own personal experience in a situation without making it sound like that's the solution they should try and take on. Like I don't want to be putting on the solution and solving the problem for my coachee, but also offering my own personal experiences in those areas. So finding that balance of that, talking and listening and questions and all of that.
What do people think about that comment? How do you find the balance when you're in a coaching position?
I think someone mentioned it before, remembering that it's not about you or like what you think the project needs to be or like the direction that you want things to go. I think remembering it's about the person that you're helping and that you're coaching, it's really about their progress and the way that they see the project, and you're kind of there to be a guide. So if you offer personal experiences, it's reminding them that this is a situation that you just were maybe wanting them to relate to, but not necessarily the direction they need to go in.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I like what you bring. It's about them, the guide metaphor, but I also use the metaphor on the conversation we're having here. Of if you tell a baby or a toddler not to touch a stove, they won't listen until they've touched the stove, and then they're going to learn. Well, it's kind of the same in coaching. We tend to want to put our ideas because we think our idea will help the person. But the truth is, you can tell the person what to do. They'll often be like a toddler. They won't really do it because they didn't come up with the idea. So if you can manage to ask that right question that's going to make them say it, that's going to make them actually learn the lesson. But there are moments, I won't hide, where in coaching session, you can take your Coachee, not take your Coachee hat off, but you can state, this is a personal opinion of mine. Have you thought about this? And you can bring your views. But yes, so often it's richer when you ask the right question and they come up with it. So I'd be curious to maybe move it forward and hear a little bit from those who were coached. How did you live the experience? Do you have any feedback for your coach? What went well? What was challenging?
I can go.
Please.
So I was a coachee, and I found that my coach took a little bit to answer me because they were thinking, and I really, really valued that, that they were thinking about what I had said and was trying to come up with their opinion of what the best way to answer that question would have been. And I felt safe in the environment because they made it safe, and they made it so that I wasn't afraid to ask and be open, and that also made me more susceptible to accepting what they were saying. So I really loved that, the atmosphere that my coach had set.
So important. I know so many people talking about atmosphere. So many of you might have done that by accident. You get to meeting with your team and you're like, okay, let's get into it. And you want to jump right in. But let people settle in, do a check-in, make sure that the atmosphere, the design agreement, as Mazdak call it, is set. Great point, Sandra.
So I can kind of add on there. So basically what happened when we started, after we decided who was going to be the coach and the coachee, which I was the coachee. The thing that I really valued the most was that we had an introduction at the beginning of who we were, where we went to school as well. And that kind of just set the tone for the rest of the meeting because it showed the interest, the mutual interest between both parties. And for me, that was one of the most valuable things of the whole experience because it really allowed me to connect with the coach right from the beginning because we had that introduction. We understood who each other were. We kind of had a little bit of knowledge about each other. It wasn't a lot, but it was enough to get things off the ground and start getting everything rolling.
Great point. Getting to know each other. Thank you, Logan.
Thank you.
Just one thing that I found was my coach, while she didn't have an answer to my question right away, she clearly thought about it and actually got back to me in the chat over something she didn't remember. And it kind of just like, as a coachee, knowing that someone actually put value in your question, no matter like how small or big it is, that they actually put thought into it after your conversation, was really like validating for me.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Indeed.
Yeah.
And sometimes just doing also with your, especially those of you who work with project managers or equivalent, if you have a great conversation with them and the next day you see an article related to their project or you see something pops up, take the time to send it to them because those little follow-up that show you care sometimes are that boost of motivation that your project managers need.
So this was very, very rich debriefs, very, very interesting. I'll just want to just wrap it because everything that needed to be said is said, and it's as coaches we always struggle for problem solving because we care and we hear the problem and we want to solve it. And how many years I've been coaching, I still have that challenge for me. So it's very important not to get to that problem solving mode and fixing mode right away. One thing that's very important, the person that sits in front of you, always look at them that they are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole. Do not feel that they lack something. Do not feel that they are incapable. You need to see them as creative and resourceful people. Always coach the person and not the problem. So because the problem usually comes somewhere that is coming from the person itself. So don't focus on the issue, but focus on the person and everything that person is living, whether sleeping, whether doing sports or everything else that is going with them. Remember, always their agenda. Try to, when you're hearing, listening from them, not to get to your own head, but always try to listen deeply with empathy. And a trick for the questions, try to avoid yes or no questions and try to use the WH or how type of questions, because that's an invitation to creativity. And then listen, and that space and that silence. And just listen and create that space of silence and creativity.
Great. Thank you so much, Mazdak. So well summed up. And before we launch you in a different exercise that will get you to practice some more to get some feedback from your peer, I was curious just to open it up. Does anyone have a coaching related question they'd like to ask me, Mazdak, or the group?
I actually have a question. So part of my role within my Enactus team is trying to encourage creativity and innovation among like others. So, and I'm one of those people, like I have ideas like coming right, like left, right, and center. It's like, okay, what now? Like, okay, you got a problem, I got a solution. Like it may not be the right solution, but it's so how do I kind of like aid people to start thinking on their own, not in like the necessary bad way, but just help and encourage them come up with their own ideas instead of putting my own.
Hey Vanessa, can I comment on that?
Please.
Hi Vanessa, so something that we always strive to do is try to find something that person is very, very passionate about, right? When we introduce Enactus kind of like as something on campus, we always say, you know, if you see something or if you have an idea or if you want to see change, you can come to us, right? And it's great to have your own ideas, but if you really, really talk to somebody and say, if you're passionate about something, we can help you with that, that will definitely get people to give you ideas and to start talking to you. That's kind of like how our mental health project started. Someone came to us and they're like, I think this is an issue. I really think we need to do something about it. Can Enactus help us? And we were like, yes, we will take that. So don't be afraid to go talk to people and say, what's your passion? Because if you're passionate about something, we want to help you with that.
Great point, Jaden. And to wrap up on that with Vanessa's question, I tend to say, ask the right question and create space. One thing that both coach, facilitators, and leaders often forget is the power of silence. And sometimes you just need to ask a question and wait 3 minutes before they start sharing ideas. And if not, there's a tiny exercise for those of you who might be running group session. There's a tiny exercise, which is before going into an actual ideation session, you give someone a paper clip, and you tell them how many different uses you can find for a paper clip. And usually people will come up with 5 to 7 different ideas. And then you tell them, all right, now let's list together what stopped you from generating more ideas. And then usually people will say they felt judged by others, they felt they were shy, they didn't want to let go. And usually once you have that brainstorm, you give them the challenge again or with a different object, and they will come up with 20 ideas. So sometimes helping your team realize what's stopping them from ideating is actually going to unleash their creativity. Cool.
We have a question on the chat. So how do you learn to ask the right questions? We'll quickly touch on that. As I say, open-ended questions always, not yes or no questions. Questions that are very curious. And the question that doesn't stay on the surface about, okay, what time did you go? What happened? How did you get? No, really question that gets in. What is important about this topic? How does this topic tie into your values? What is attractive about this idea? What ticks you off? What are you struggling with? So their questions are a little bit like, bigger. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And if that's something you truly want to learn, there's a lot of resources. There's a book called The Art of Powerful Question, which is a great book for people who are in coaching position that you might want to consider. And it's fun because it's not only for others, it's also going to help yourself ask yourself better questions. But you can also just do some research online. There are so many articles and books written. There's a triangle of questions. There's a ton of theories there too. So I invite all of you to, if that's something that you want to develop and that you think you have space to improve upon, please do your research because it will transform your way of leading.
Yeah.
Sorry, just to kind of go to back up a little bit about that book you recommended. Who was the author?
I read it like 3 years ago, so I'd have to research it again. Maybe while you're in the breakout rooms, I'll look it up and I'll come back to it, Vanessa.
No problem. Take your time with that.
Cool. So for sake of time, I think we're going to move on with a second drill. Basically, this time we're going to repeat a similar activity. You're going to be split into breakout rooms to practice coaching. The main variable that's going to change is that this time you're going to be 3 people in the room. There's going to be a coach, a coachee, and an observer. The observer's role is just to be quiet, to listen to the conversation. And at the end, the observer is going to get 3 minutes to give constructive feedback to whoever was to the coach and the coachee, so you can have a constructive discussion about it. And the reason why we're adding this factor is that, to me, feedback, being open to receiving feedback and giving good feedback is probably one of the biggest superpowers you can bring back to your team. Because literally, if you work with a team member who sucks, but who has that ability to seek feedback and receive feedback, trust me, 1 year later, he's going to be a new person and they're going to be at another point. And so we really invite you all to value that feedback piece and being open to feedback. So we're going to launch you in that activity. So please make it a safe space so that observer can feel free during the last 3 minutes to give feedback on whatever they witnessed. It's probably a good sign. I see even more smile than after the last breakout room. So I hope your breakout rooms were productive. Before we jump back in, I just wanted to follow up on Vanessa's question. I'm going to share a few resources for those who want to copy paste in the chat. But yes, there's the book, The Art of Powerful Question, which is great. It's not a recent read, but all the concepts are super relevant. There's also another book I read that I think I much enjoyed that's a little more applied for a leadership situation. That's called Leading with Questions. And I've also shared an article that I've used with some class called The Surprising Power of Questions from the Harvard Business Review. So if ever some of you want to go deeper in your art of asking powerful questions as a leader, please feel free to copy paste those links. And on that, our time is flying, but I would love to hear about how that experience was for you and what are people taking away from the activities today from the feedback they received.
I can go.
Please.
So I've noticed that I can talk too much, and sometimes I forget to ask questions, and sometimes I forget to let people talk. In the conversation, I was the coachee, but I felt like at the beginning we didn't have like that balance. Like I was going on like forgetting that he was also supposed to like ask questions and analyze. So if the situation was reversed, I feel like that would have happened as well. I would be like just talking. So taking a step back and actually listening and asking questions.
That's a great point. I will give it to all of you. It's not easy to coach someone in 8 minutes. You're just doing the intro work, but still, that's a great lesson to carry to your team, Isis.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I can add something today, I've had the opportunity of both being a coach and a coachee. And I find it is interesting to be on both sides of the equation of giving advice and being able to receive advice. Those are both skills that everyone needs to have, even in leadership positions. You'll always be getting advice. You'll always be having to give advice. And having those strategies, having the ability to do that in an effective way, I feel is a very important skill and one that doesn't necessarily come easily. I feel that personally, I'm someone, I like to talk. I like to try to help solve people's problems. So actually sitting back and listening to other people's advice and what they're going through as well and suggestions they have for me is something that I found really interesting and a very eye-opening experience to be able to, in this short period of time, an hour and a half, being able to have both those positions. So I think it was an incredible experience.
Wow, thank you, Xander. And to be honest, if you are all to leave with only one thing from the Leadership Summit, if it can be to be open to constructive feedback, it's going to transform your upcoming year. So that's a great point.
I have something else to add as well. I think being on both sides, either being coached or being the person who is coaching, you have to, like, a key skill that I think this taught us is that we have to see things from many different perspectives. So we have our perspective, but we have to recognize and even acknowledge and value that there's maybe 5 different ways of getting to the same outcome and to conciliate those different methodologies to create the perfect solution that might not even be perfect and that might even need further refinement. But I think the key thing is to be able to work with different ideas, different perspectives, and build on those.
Wow. And that's so powerful. And as a leader, if you can get all of your team's perspective on board, whatever you come up with is going to be so much stronger than any single individual. So well said, Chloe. I'd be curious to hear maybe from someone who hasn't spoken up yet today.
Yeah, no, I can go. I think as a coach in the second, I guess, round, for me, what was important was the fact that I feel like I was very solution oriented, like, oh, here's what you can do to fix it, and then, like, full stop. But I realized that there's a lot more to, like, just exploring the problem, hearing their side of things, and just listening as a coach. And I think that's more important than sort of coming up with the solution itself.
Great. That's a great point, Lawrence. And I'll even do a parallel. A lot of you are also helping teams who are developing projects. And often you'll realize your project managers are also solution driven to the point where they get caught up to their solution. And they're trying to impose a solution when no one wants even if it's a great idea, no one wants it. And so if you can help your program managers also being more attentive to what we call the environment, the system, the market in which they're doing their initiative, and to have them be more problem-based entrepreneurs rather than solution-based entrepreneurs, you'll be helping your teams develop some much more meaningful enterprise.
I think something that I found really cool is when I asked the question that was like a problem to me, the way that my coach answered it was like she answered in the way that she kind of made it look like it was actually an opportunity for me and something like exciting rather than a problem. And yeah, I thought it was really cool how like she turned it around to be an opportunity rather than a problem.
Oh, thank you, Mohammed. That's great. Seeing opportunities and sometimes just asking the question, so what could you do about it? And people will come up with great solutions.
The word perspective came a couple of times here. So one of the roles and jobs of a coach is to understand what initial perspective you're stuck in and take you to take another perspective that opens up possibilities and opportunities.
And our time is going way too fast. We're probably gonna go over a couple minutes. If ever you need to trickle out for something else, we want to respect your time. But just as we've invited you to be super open to feedback, Mazdak and I also wanted to lead by example and ask quickly from a few of you. You can either share in the chat. Also, if you were there at the Saturday session, you're more than welcome to comment on those. But is there anything, do you have any constructive recommendations for us if we were to do it again? Are there things you wish we would have covered over the summit? Anything you wish we would have done differently? And we'd like to hear a few voice, but you can also write in the chat if you prefer.
Not like a improvement. I just really enjoyed the breakout rooms. This is my first leadership summit, so obviously meeting in person is awesome, but doing more events like this where we can just meet and chat virtually, I really enjoyed that. I wanted the breakout rooms to be longer. Like, I think we could have done like 2 hours of leadership summit at a time. No, it was just really fun, and there was really great advice throughout all the sessions. I was just really happy that I was able to attend virtually.
Wow. Super glad to hear. Lots of people told me you can't do virtual session more than an hour or an hour and a half. So I'm glad that it was interactive and kept you on board, Petkis.
I think what was interesting, sorry, was someone going?
No, go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, I thought what was interesting when you gave us like different positions, like being a coach or being a coachee, it was interesting because I was answering questions that I had trouble with myself. So when I was coming up with solutions, I was like, wait, like maybe I'm overthinking it, and some of these problems aren't really as difficult as I make them to be because I'm able to provide someone else with advice, and that advice was helpful for myself as well.
And you're bringing a great point there, Rita, where self-coaching is an art. And the better you become at coaching your peers, the better you'll become at coaching yourself and asking yourself the good questions. And for those who were there on Saturday, doing that grounding work of taking a pause and saying what's going on, that's a great point. A final comment?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, it's so nice to meet everyone here, and it's like it's so also just so nice to speak with everyone. And I think throughout this experience, we kind of realize that the problems that we have on our team, it's very similar to the ones on your team, and having that sense of like we're not alone and we're all into this together is, I think, for me, not only very motivating, but also very powerful. And I also want to put out there, like, if you guys have any questions or you want to bounce ideas off, don't be afraid to come and speak with myself.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. And kind of along that line, we wanted to, although it's the last official session of the virtual summit, we did want to offer you an opportunity to connect. So those who were there on Saturday might be familiar with the drill, but for those who are new, we will be sending out a link on which you can sign up for a peer-to-peer coaching exchange. And basically what you've had a chance to kind of practice twice, 10 minutes. Well, this time, those who want, it's optional. You can sign up, and Enactus Canada will send an email to match you up 2 by 2. And then you can try both having a coaching session. What we suggest is you set the agenda, maybe plan for an hour and a half, so you can split the time half-half, where each of you get half of the time to try and coach the other and receive feedback from your peer. And trust me, it's going to be a powerful experience, especially because you're sharing some leadership position, you're sharing so much in common. So that's going to be a great opportunity. Aaron, did you have the link to share in the chat?
I don't have it here to share in the chat, but I will send it out in an email to all the participants from this session, and resending the link that we shared on Saturday for that session as well tomorrow.
Great. Thank you so much, Aaron. And then Mazdak, do you want to Give the closing
Well, I
closing
just
word.
want to let you guys know that Enactus will send a survey. It will be much, much appreciated. It will help people like you who next year will come and join to enjoy it as well and find what worked well, what worked less well, and make the experience very memorable for them as well. So I would like, before we leave, to hear one word from everyone. And it can be any word that comes to you. And you can unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat.
Empowered.
People.
Inspired.
Passion.
Motivated.
Enlighten.
Together.
Powered.
Insightful.
Enlightened.
Any final words?
Inspiring.
Trust.
Light horse.
Faithfulness. This was a wonderful session. I want to leave you guys with an inquiry. This is something you're going to ponder upon for the few weeks that come. Who am I being when I lead my team as a coach?
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks also to the Noctis team and all the program managers who just jumped into all of the conversations and were there to give feedback, challenge you. Really a pleasure, and I have so much faith in all of you.
And also I would like to thank to be invited and for the Enactus team for organizing this and actually giving me this opportunity to meet all of you. And that was a learning experience for me too. It was amazing working with you, Clément. It's a very fulfilling feeling that I have, very emotional as well. And I've also let my contacts there. Some people in the chat said they might need tips and stuff like that. Feel free. I'm always free on LinkedIn, Facebook, email. If you need anything, I can be reached. I will be very happy to hear from you.
Can I just say thank you to Enactus Canada for everything that they've done and the amazing thing that they've done here with it being virtual with all of us so far apart from each other, but then together today from all over Canada. We're all connected. And thank you, Enactus Canada, for putting this together for us.
Thank you. I just want to echo that as well to thank Clément and Mazdak for all the work that they put into this. We certainly could not have done this without you. And to Catherine, Meredith, and Mara for all the support that they have put in over the last couple of weeks putting this together, and to everyone who attended this session and previous sessions. We want to keep doing this. So going back to Mazdak's point about the feedback and the survey, we're going to be sending out a survey, and we encourage you to fill it out and be as constructive as you can. We want to keep doing things like this and continue to connect to you guys virtually. We can't do that without your feedback. So you'll receive a link to the survey shortly, and hopefully you can feel that you can be honest. Tell us what worked, what didn't work, and we'll continue to work towards putting on sessions similar to these in the future. I just wanted to mention, I mentioned this on Tuesday, but for anyone who wasn't there on Tuesday, we are going to have one more session. We're going to have a mental health session led by the cooperators later in June. We're looking at June 23rd is the proposed date right now. More details to come, but it's going to be a really amazing session. It's the title that I've heard is that the expert runs. It's called "What's Your Biggest Lie?" So it's going to be a really cool session. I encourage everyone who attended this evening to sign up for that. Encourage your team members to sign up for that as well. Cooperators have been a really great partner of ours for the last couple of years, really leading the charge to support mental health initiatives in our network. So we're lucky to have them doing that, and we're really excited to have that session in a couple of weeks. That's all I have. Thanks again, everyone. Thank you for your time. I know we're a couple of minutes over, so I won't ramble on any longer. As I mentioned, any feedback is welcomed, whether it's through survey or directly to your program manager. Please let us know what you think. Thanks, everyone, and have a good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I can't stay any longer. I do have to run. Clement and Mazek, I'll reach out to you guys. Maybe we can set up a call next week to try just kind of a follow-up and just discuss, what went well, what didn't went well, any takeaways that we might have.
Cool. Yeah. Take care, and let's talk next week, Aaron.
Thanks
again. See you guys.
Take care.
Bye.